Joining me now is lifelong Glanbrook resident and the voice for Ward 11. Please welcome Mark Tadeson. Mark, it's good to have you here.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I always like, because we say Ward 11, we say Ward whatever, and people are like, where is that exactly if they don't live in the area? So what area within the Hamilton boundaries do you represent?
Well, it's basically south of the Hydro Corridor that's just south of Rymel Road, all the way back to Halderbrook Road. We have Westbrook Road on the east side, all the way over to Glancaster. It's a huge area.
It
I
is.
do a lot of driving to get to constituents' houses. We can go as far back as Sinclairville. And if someone coming from Sinclairville, probably takes them 35, 40 minutes to get into the heart of the city.
Which is really remarkable.
Yeah.
Like when you think about it, and I think that that's the thing too, like depending on where you live, you don't realize how massive the Hamilton boundaries are and the large areas in which a lot of the councillors are responsible for. Not as dense, but you've got a lot of traveling you have to do.
There's a lot there. I do have pockets of density. I've got Glanbrook is probably the fastest growing area.
I was just going to
Mount
say.
Hope's growing as well. So, but in between we have lots of farmlands, lots of agricultural, lots of sod farms.
Yes,
you know, so lots happening out there. Got a great little community center in the middle of it. It's our arena, trying to get that upgraded. So things like that are always keeping me busy.
Yeah, so let's start with talking about what you're trying to do with the arena there. You're looking to get a recreation center approved.
Yeah. So we're trying to get a gymnasium, an indoor pool, kind of community spaces for our area that would be in the heart of Glanbrook, which would basically serve people on the rural roads. It's right next door to Glanbrook. It's a short drive for Mount Hope, and then people actually from Summit Hill could come south and join us there as well. And that's the central location. It's always been, it would be at the arena site. I think there's 11 acres there, possibly, that are doable. So yeah, it's a great location, and it meets the needs, and it's where the community has always come together for the last, since 1975 when we built the arena there. So that's the meeting place for everybody, and as a guy who's lived there my whole life, I'm kind of partial to that being the area, even though there are some challenges to get. It was placed in the Greenbelt 25 years ago. Probably not the best decision at that time, so we have to navigate some of the provincial policies to get services down there to build that bigger rec center with an indoor pool, and again, that's the big piece for me.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like a really good location. You've got it designated as a municipal property.
Yes, it is.
So that's great, right? So that helps, but you're right, there's a lot of moving pieces to get any big project up and running, but I like the idea of it. And then you're also working on trying to get some park planning in place in Glanbrook with the requested meeting to house a community cache park planning process there.
Okay, so yeah, there's an issue with the Glanbrook cache. There was a park that was originally designated as a park zone. Cache had some problems building in a different section of that. So what happened is Cache came forward and requested through the city processes to change that location for the park. Unfortunately, that's going to affect people that bought near the park, because the idea is for the park that's to go to the south now, there would be a community multi-use trail that goes all the way from Fletcher's Road right into Glanbrook, which would be a big bonus. But I'm not going to sit there and convince the people who live in Glanbrook that actually bought a place that they thought was going to be park fronting. I can't convince them that that was the right, that this is a good move for them. I didn't understand or didn't know that people had already bought their lots when we allowed those changes to be happening.
Which is always tough, right? Like
it's always tough. I think it's something that the developer is going to have to work out with the residents. Yeah. And I'm there to support the residents through the process and bring the two sides together to see if we can find some win-win situation. I don't know if it's going to be a win-win, but something that is the least of all evils, right? Yeah,
and that's a really good way to put it, because sometimes at the end of the day, that's all you can do, right? There's a lot of
there's a lot of things to weigh. For me as a councillor, I really feel a responsibility towards those residents, even though at the time when we were making this, those people, that was an empty field to me. So I didn't really have a great understanding of the process in terms of notifying people who aren't there yet. The properties were owned by the developer at the time, and so it's been a bit of a challenge. But you know what, I'm hoping we can find something that's going to be good for the people that live there.
Yeah, it's that balance, and
yeah,
it sounds like
it
you're
is the
working
balance.
towards it, which is really good.
It's going to be a bit of a challenge. So that's one of my biggest issues that I've been dealing with in the last couple of months, for sure.
It's tough, right? As
Yeah.
I said, it's always difficult being in politics in general. But you know, you're pulled in so many different directions when you're in municipal politics as well.
Well, I think most people get into politics to help people, and then when things occur that aren't helpful to them individually, but it might be, say, a bigger picture, it's a good. That's the difficulty. There's that nuance where how do you balance that? And like I've always been, as a principal, I always like was a champion of the underdog, like, you know, and I was always like looking out for kids that, you know, a little bit marginalized, a little bit of an odd duck or something like that, and trying to bring them into the fold, making them, you know, feel more comfortable in our school. I loved all the kids, but you know, you have that group of kids that they're going to be okay no matter where they go. I was always concerned about, again, that kid in the background who wasn't as involved. So I'd always try to bring them out of their shell, and I'd always try to make sure that they could participate in things even though they were a little bit tentative. I'd always want them to feel like, okay, so we'd introduce games of low skill. So even if you're not an athlete, it's all just participate. If you can hit a balloon, if you can hit a beach ball, you can do this, right? So, you know, those are kinds of things that I would bring in to, as a principal. I've transferred that now to a politician, where I think, you know, I'm always concerned, like, yes, I want to do something for the greater good, but it can't be something that's unfair to the smaller population that's being affected most, right? And I think that's what we have to balance out. And then you have to make, if that's going to be the case, you have to make accommodations and modifications for those people in order for everybody to be successful.
Yeah, and you'll never really truly be able to make everybody happy, right? I think that as soon as you accept that as a politician, you're in a good space, Mark, because it's almost impossible to make everyone around you happy, no matter what you do.
But we can try, and I will say that there are a lot of sleepless nights where I lay awake just looking at the ceiling, and I'm thinking, can something be done? Can we do? And I very often bring ideas to staff, and they say, you know, Councillor, we never thought of that. So, you know, that's the input that, and I talk to a lot of people too, and like, you know, everybody on the ground level has an understanding of what they know, and then they have a solution, but they don't have the whole picture, right? So I'll say, what about this? And they say, okay, Councillor, but then we have this, that's the unintended consequence that we spoke of before, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there is always that. Now there is something really good, is the Rain Ready Hamilton that you can talk to people about, and that's this rebate program for eco-friendly property upgrades. Like I love this. I always love hearing things like this that are opportunities for people, and then whether or not they tap into it.
Yeah, well, that's an opportunity. Again, it's going to take people to take the initiative. So we've put that information out in our newsletter. Grants that will, you know, you put a rain barrel in your house, you direct your downspouts to your garden, you direct them to your flower garden, so so your water doesn't flow off your property. Out in the rural, it's a little bit different than it is for somebody in the, I guess, in my rural section. So Glanbrook proper, we'll say the town of Glanbrook, people living in the residential areas, they would probably be more likely to access something like this. Lots of people in the rural have, like, you know, an acre lot, so the water basically comes in, it stays on your property, it lands on your house, it runs into your lawn. You know what I mean? Like, it might go into your weeping tile, get pumped out, go somewhere else into a farmer's field or something. But really, I think this is it's a good way to counterbalance, I guess, what we call is the rain tax, and I know it's the stormwater management fee.
Yes.
So it's a good way to counter that. And you know what? People actually that live in the residential area, the net difference between them and not having the stormwater tax is probably going to be about $35 to $40, whereas people that live in the rural areas that aren't connected to the built system, $201 right now. So that's why I worked hard this year to kind of defer that so that we could take a second look at that, because that goes back again, like, what's for the greater good, but then how's it affecting? Is it affecting somebody in an inequitable way? And I think it does, so that's why I was standing up for the rural folks. And we also have businesses that are kind of going to get nailed. Some people didn't even know that they were going to be getting a new tax of $40,000. You know, you could look at anywhere like a place like Amazon. Possibly works out to over $100,000 a year. So how am I as a councillor going out trying to bring new businesses into Hamilton and trying to sell that point? So I think we have to look at that. I know it was passed by council. I deferred it, but I deferred it in the hopes of possibly reviewing it and making some amendments to it that make more sense for Hamilton as a growing city.
Yeah, well, and exactly, and that's it too, because you're not only just looking out for your ward, you also have to look out for the city as a whole, right, when you're on council. And then something else I wanted to talk to you about, because, and this one is an issue for me too, because I live up in Greensville, so rural. Yeah. I have a 1 acre property. Improving reliable and affordable internet. So this is the rural internet access. And I like this because, you know, we pay a lot of money because we don't have the infrastructure where I live either.
I know, and there is a process Ontario-wide where Rogers got the contract to bring high-speed broadband and internet to our rural areas. The way that they want to implement it is different than the way the city wants to implement it. They want to do something called the plowing technique, which goes down the side of the road, puts the cables down the side of the road, 3 feet deep, buries them back, and then you just connect into that wire. City of Hamilton's resistant to that because they don't know exactly where what we're going to be doing in the future. And if we allow Rogers to do it, and then we want to modify that road, say we want to widen that road, we want to dig that road down, do the foundations again, we're going to be disturbing that cable, and then Hamilton's going to be on the, you know, they're going to be on the ticket for that payment. So it presents a challenge. I've driven to Ottawa basically on my own time to speak to Rogers representatives to talk about it. They're game for it, but they want to do this plowing method. I said, what about hooking up to the hydro poles? Well, now Hydro Ontario says, oh, we can't hook up to the hydro poles because now you're going to have to pay us a tax because you might compromise the integrity of the hydro poles. It makes no sense to me, like one cable going on there. I see it happens in areas where I have cable to my house, the old copper cable. It's not a huge issue, but it is because we're stepping on other people's territories and they don't want to give that up. Yeah, and that's always the problem. I wish we had more time because we have to cut it off there, but that is always the problem, right? When you're working with different organizations, you always have to be thinking what's going to happen next. If we do this, what is that going to mean? So, but hopefully you'll keep working towards a solution. I am. I'm dedicated to that, and that will be something that I'll be going on until I'm finished serving the public. Wonderful. Mark, it was really nice to meet you. Thank you. Thanks for being here.